There are many scrapbooks of photos from the past and mementos of a lovely, wistful young woman, her eyes embracing a future yet to come, surrounded by family, friends, and co-workers as she embarks on a life of adventure, business, community service, leadership, and international travel, working at the 1939 New York World's Fair, standing lovingly near the man who would be her husband and partner in life, counting among her circle of friends many international business, political, cultural, and literary leaders. The Alzheimer's Association, Aloha Chapter, and the family of Jean Ikeda are proud to present a tribute to Jean Ikeda. Jean's parents immigrated to America from Japan in the early 1900s, leaving behind 3 daughters to be raised by their maternal grandmother in Kobe, Japan. They settled in Detroit, Michigan, where her father and uncle were employed by Henry Ford, the car magnate. Toshiko Jean Sato Ikeda was born on April 5, 1918, in Detroit, Michigan. Jean had a wonderful childhood, raised with her 3 brothers. Later, after attending Los Angeles City College, Jean traveled to Japan to meet her 3 sisters for the first time. She stayed for 2 years, learning to speak Japanese fluently. She returned to the United States when she was hired by the Japanese government to demonstrate silkworm cultivation in the Japanese pavilion at the 1939 New York World's Fair. The New York Times featured a picture of Jean in an article about the World's Fair. It was the first time Jean saw television. Returning to Los Angeles, Jean met her future husband, Albert Ikeda. They married a few months after Pearl Harbor on April 2, 1942, a few days before being sent to internment camp at Gila River, Arizona. Their daughter, Lucinda Ann, was born at the camp in February 1943. Thanks to her work experience at the U.S. Embassy in Japan, Jean was able to secure work in Chicago, allowing her family to leave the internment camp before the end of the war. Albert, Jennifer, Diane, and Roger were born in Chicago. In 1944, Jean completed an oral history of her experiences under the pseudonym Tamie. This oral history became the basis for 2 books by Charles Kikuchi on the Japanese-American experience during World War II, and another book entitled The Salvage, a series of oral histories of Japanese Americans. Shortly after the family moved to Honolulu in 1952, Jean became the first American hired in Hawaii for a brand new airline, Japan Airlines. In 1958, the Japanese language newspaper Hawaii Hochi featured Jean for her uniqueness at the time of being the first female sales manager for Japan Airlines, specializing in group tour sales. In the article, Jean was quoted as saying that working women are happier and alive, and she was proud of herself for working. The Hawaii Hochi also highlighted Jean's interest in Japanese history, genealogy, and government. Throughout the years, Jean created a radiant circle of friends, including all the mayors and wives, from the Mayor Blaisdell administration to Mayor Jeremy Harris. Every governor and first lady, from Governor George Ariyoshi to Governor Benjamin Cayetano. Also, Richard Smart of Parker Ranch, the late Ishizaka Taisho, chairman of the board of Toshiba and Japan Airlines, Devi Sakano, wife of the Indonesian leader, Aiko Yamano, and Akio Morita, the founder of Sony Corporation. Jean was also friends with Dr. Soshitsu Sen, 15th generation Grand Tea Master of the Urasenke tradition. Mrs. Yaiko Shiotsuke, a famous author of Japanese etiquette, and the late Mari and James Michener. Every time James Michener came to Hawaii, Jean would greet him at the airport and take him to eat Saimin at Sekia's in Kaimuki. In addition to her career at Japan Airlines, Jean found time to raise 5 children, and as a tireless volunteer, Jean gave generously of her time and talent to many local civic and cultural organizations, including Travel Women Hawaii, the United Japanese Society, Soroptimus International of Honolulu, and the Urasenke Foundation, the Miyagi Ken Club, and the Japanese Women's Society. She retired from Japan Airlines in 1977 after 25 years with the company. As part of her retirement package, she requested and was granted the first lifetime flight privileges, a practice that is standard today throughout the company. During one of her many international trips, Jean led a delegation of Japanese Women's Society members to Japan, which was highlighted by an audience with Princess Michiko, now the Empress of Japan. The Hawaii Hochi highlighted Jean once again in 1978 for her leadership role as the president of the Japanese Women's Society and the society's role in raising funds for Kuakini geriatric care. Throughout her life, Jean's travels took her to amazing places and created the opportunity for her to meet many distinctive people. However, today, she faces a journey that will take her on a very difficult path. In 1999, Toshiko Jean Sato Ikeda was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. She will now have to use all the energy, efforts, and leadership qualities to fight Alzheimer's disease. She taught us to gambaru, which means to persevere. She exemplified a life of generosity, kindness, graciousness, and strength. Jean gave a lot of herself and forged new paths for women in the workplace. And now she has one of the greatest challenges to face, where she will need all of her special qualities to meet this challenging new transition. And tonight, we honor her for this. Join with us as we recognize and pay tribute to Toshiko Jean Sato Ikeda for her contributions to our community, her lifetime of achievement, and enough memories to fill several lifetimes. Toshiko Jean Sato Ikeda, we love you, we will remember you.